You know what's worse than loving a man who doesn't love you back? I whispered to myself, staring at the ceiling of his penthouse. Pretending you don't love him at all. 3 years of holding his briefcase, dodging his glances, and laughing at his cold jokes like they didn't shatter something inside me. Elliot Maddox was brilliant, ruthless, and emotionally unavailable in the most maddening way possible. The first time I met him, I spilled coffee on his Armani blazer, and he looked at me like I was a fly on his steak. Naturally, I got the job. "Caleb," he would say sharply, never looking up from his screen. "Stop hovering." Hovering. That was my job description in a nutshell. Hovering just close enough to feel him, but never enough to touch. We were opposites. He, the sharply dressed Manhattan legal powerhouse with a temper as tight as his tie. Me, the small-town transplant who still said thank you to cab drivers and cried watching dog food commercials. And somehow, I became his right-hand man. His assistant. His cover. Elliot was in the middle of the biggest litigation of his career, a corporate takedown with stakes so high, even the mayor was watching. To make it look balanced, his PR team suggested he seem more personable. Enter me. The loyal, lovable assistant rumored to be his longtime partner. He didn't correct them, and I didn't mind pretending. For a while. Until the pretending got too real. Until the nights when he'd come home from court too exhausted to take off his tie and I'd be there, untying it. Until I started noticing how he never smiled for anyone else but me. Until he told me once, late at night, "If I had a heart, you'd be the one holding it." But Elliot never said things he meant. Not out loud. Not fully. That was the first rule of being close to him. Never believe the scraps he dropped. Still, I kept waiting. For 3 years. Until the accident. It happened on a Thursday. I still remember the smell of rain on asphalt, the blur of headlights, and the shattering of glass. Elliot was driving home from court. I had stayed late to fix a typo on a closing statement. When I got the call, I didn't ask if he was okay. I asked if he was alone. He wasn't. There was a man in the passenger seat, a journalist named Rob. And in the confusion and flashing lights, one of the EMTs asked me, "Are you the boyfriend?" "Yes," I said, without hesitation. When I got to the hospital, Rob had a broken leg. Elliot had a concussion and a dislocated shoulder. And the first thing he said when he saw me was, "Why are you here?" I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I smiled because I'd learned to fake things well. "Someone had to make sure your tie's still straight." He chuckled. A soft, familiar sound that punched me in the gut. That night, I sat beside his bed, watching him sleep. 3 years, and still I wasn't allowed into the real parts of him. I leaned closer, brushing his hair back from his forehead. "I love you," I whispered. He didn't stir. But someone heard. Rob. 2 days later, he confronted me in the hospital cafeteria. "You know he's in love with you, right?" Rob said, stirring his coffee like it had personally offended him. I blinked. "Excuse me? Elliot, he talks about you like you hung the moon. He just doesn't think he deserves you." I laughed, hollow. "He barely looks at me." Rob leaned in. "That's his problem. You scare the hell out of him." Elliot returned to work 2 weeks later, bruised but walking. Cold as ever. Colder even. He refused my help, barked orders, and treated me like I was just another intern. Until one night, everything cracked. It was storming again. The thunder shook the windows. I had stayed late rechecking files for a case. When I brought them into his office, he didn't look up. "You can leave." I didn't move. "You're not my boyfriend, Caleb. Stop acting like one." That did it. I slammed the folder on his desk. "You know what? You're right. I'm not. I'm the idiot who stood by you for 3 years while you ignored me, used me, and threw me crumbs like I should be grateful." He looked up then. Eyes dark. "You knew the deal."
No.
"I thought I did." I snapped. "But I never signed up to lose myself loving someone who doesn't even see me." Silence. Then, softly, he said, "I see you." I stared at him, heart pounding. "Then prove it." He stood slowly, walking around the desk. "You want the truth?" I nodded. I'm terrified of you. I frowned. What? You make me feel things I don't know how to name. You God. Caleb, you make me want things. He reached for me then. His hand touched my jaw, trembling. I love you, he whispered. I've loved you since the coffee incident. Tears burned my eyes. Then why? Because you deserve someone better than a broken man who's spent his life building walls. I stepped into him. Then let me break them. He kissed me, and it wasn't cold or calculated. It was fire meeting flood. Years of silence collapsing into one breathless, desperate moment. 6 months later, we moved in together. He still forgets to buy milk. I still cry at dog food commercials. He lets me hold his hand in public now. Sometimes, when no one's looking, he kisses my forehead and says, "You scare the hell out of me." I always reply, "Good," because love isn't about safety. It's about choosing to stay anyway. And after 3 years of pretending, I finally know what real love feels like. Feels like him. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.